Demidov is officially in action. His injury seems to be healing as he has a beautiful snipe in the SK. A little scrimmage game. We got to get into Demidov and how he's progressing. Plus, one name was brought up by Marc Dumont in a recent article as a Montreal Canadiens target that we haven't discussed a whole lot in Filip Tomasino. That, plus Dumont also had an article discussing the odds of Sidney Crosby coming to Montreal. All that coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. And without further ado, we're going to dive into the Crosby stuff. And before we get into this is just a bit of fun. As Mark even says in his article, this is just some dog days of summer talk. It's just a bit of fun, not speculation, not a trade rumor, nothing like that. Just kind of a what if. And he said, let's talk about Sidney Crosby and the Montreal Canadiens. Because, Jesse, this is something we've spoken about together on and off the show. Sidney Crosby, man, it could work out. It could work out, but his important caveat, again, it's just conversation. He's not suggesting the Habs have initiated any semblance of talks, anything like that. Just want to put that out there. But he did say this. He said that perhaps the wisest strategy would be to see how the contract negotiations with the Penguins play out in the next few weeks. If they cannot come to an agreement on an extension, the possibility Crosby could hit the open market at the end of next season would become slightly more realistic. But for now, this is much closer to wishful thinking. And hey, he'd be a great fit for Montreal. I mean, again, you'd have to pay a lot for him, but Montreal now has some weaponized cap space. He'd be a great mentor for young guys. But to me, again, this is a bit of a long shot. I don't see a world where the Penguins are just going to let him waltz over to Montreal.
It's very true. The question remains, though, just why the contract isn't done.
Yeah.
We know, like, Sidney Crosby, though, he really bleeds for that team. Him and Mario Lemieux are so tight. So it's like the chance of him leaving after winning 3 Stanley Cups there is very low. But if he was to go anywhere, it definitely would be the Montreal Canadiens. You know, he could obviously bring so much, to this team. It's just, interesting here, like, rumors of Letang wanting to come to Montreal as well, right? And we know that if anywhere else for Crosby, definitely be here. But you just have to feel like at this point in his career, it'd kind of be the best for him to kind of finish things off over, in Pittsburgh. That being said, like, there's an undeniable, like, East Coast connection, like with the Montreal Canadiens, right, Josh, and the Habs. So, again, 37 goals, 42 goals at 37, last year, still playing such great hockey, incredibly consistent. So no doubt the value, like, Josh, how nuts would the Bell Center go? Like, obviously these are hypotheticals, right? But just what he could kind of bring to this team. I don't think it's destined to be, but wouldn't that just be amazing?
I mean, like, that would be his first time stepping on the ice. It'd be an incredible crowd reaction. Like, he's just not hitting that wall. Like, even despite the injuries, the concussions, he's not hitting that wall. It's like he's a superhuman. And again, it's a bit of fun talk, as he is the perfect mentor for so many young guys the Habs have, and he could provide a lot of value in his twilight years of his career. But honestly, it would kind of feel wrong to see him not retire in a Pittsburgh Penguins jersey. He'd probably end up signing him one day at the end too. But, we've had these talks about other older players, the likes of Stamkos, the likes of even Letang, who wants to go to Montreal. So the odds of players coming to Montreal is definitely increasing. But on the Crosby front, probably a bit more of a long shot. But let us know your thoughts on that down below. Would you even want to do this for the price he'd probably command? We'd love to hear from you. But we're going to move on to a guy that's maybe a bit more likely to go to Montreal. And this is Filip Tomasino. Now, this is, again, no actual trade rumors here, but he's another name, Jess. Now, we discussed Dawson Mercer in the last video, but Filip Tomasino is another one of those young players, restricted free agent, but he doesn't have a contract yet with the Nashville Predators. And if we take a look at his stats, like 20 points in 41 games this past year with Nashville, 11 goals in 22 games in the AHL. He had 32 points in 29 games in the AHL in 2020, 2021. He seems to be, like, kind of doing well. And in a recent article, the same one that we talked about yesterday for Dawson Mercer, Malcolm had this to say. He said it'd be more likely that the Canadiens would look to focus on a young forward that could join the group at the right price, like Mercer, Laine, or Filip Tomasino. As reported by Montreal Hockey Now in the past, the Canadiens remain in conversations into the summer to try and improve the roster before the start of training camp. And Jesse, these stats are pretty good. Like, you look at these, like, this guy is, I would argue, established like half point per game in the NHL over the past few years. He's 6 foot. He's a right-hand shot center. He has good AHL numbers. He's an RFA. He needs a deal. I feel like he's one of these guys, like, he's decently established, but he's not going to cost you a lot to sign to an extension. And with Nashville now bringing in every free agent in the world, it seems, it doesn't seem super far-fetched to see Filip Tomasino potentially be on the move.
And with this player, like, it's somebody that can play well. It's just, he hasn't gotten enough ice time in Nashville to really shine through. It seems like whenever he kind of gets some traction, just kind of something happens, right? Where, then he goes to the HL. So it seems like on a team like the Habs, where he could get more playing time, that is a place for him to flourish, rather. That being said, it's like a big red flag for me, Josh, going in. Probably the reason why I would pass on this is just like the rumors we hear a little bit. Again, we don't like to kind of jump into something unless we know for sure, but just the work ethic, the consistency in his game has been something kind of missing a little bit. Again, when we talk about the Habs, it always kind of comes to that culture and everything else, right? But we know that he's got that size, he has that skill. So there is a solid argument to be made. Like a young player, I definitely like to see a little bit more kind of that solid production still, but at the same time, you can't deny that there's that potential there. Got to feel like Kent Hughes is going to be looking elsewhere though for the long-term future of this team.
I just think there are better options, right? It's kind of what it comes down to. And while Montreal is looking to add a player, and while, I honestly like looking at Tomasino's stats, like they do look encouraging to me. I mean, 24th overall pick, like I don't even know if you can't really consider him a prospect, though he spends a lot of time in the AHL. He'd be one of those guys that would definitely get some ice time, whether at center or whether on the wing. But I think you're right, Jesse. And while you don't like to speculate too much on what goes on off the ice, all this kind of stuff, maybe a Mercer would be harder to get. Line would be harder to get. Tomasino, to me, is one of those guys that falls in that sweet spot of being a lot more affordable, a lot easier to get, especially with a team that's sort of pressured to make a move. But at the same time, I think he's probably going to go in another direction. But let us know what you think down below about Filip Tomasino. It's a bit of an interesting name. Not what we talk about a whole lot, but could be an interesting get. Final topic, Jesse, though. Oh, man. I'm just going to let you take it away after I play this clip, because I think we both had very similar reactions. We played this at the top of the show, but oh my gosh, he's insane. I know his leg was hurt, and he comes out and just does this. I know they're not going 100%, but just take it away. I'm almost at a loss for words.
Finding the open ice, calling for the puck, but we want to see wanting the puck, right? And then being able to just go in the offensive zone and snipe it, right? Like the thing about that we're seeing from him lately, he finds like these soft spots in the offensive zone. We saw another goal from him that he scored in these scrimmages, right? Where he just slips into the offensive zone almost undetected, just finds where this the open ice is. He then attacks it, and then obviously an amazing elite level looking shot, right? We're looking at some of the best players in the NHL. You see a similar type release, there's some serious sauce on that, right? So we're seeing amazing developments, from Demidov, right? I don't know, I know there's questions about where he's going to fit on SKA. I don't know. From the clip, Josh, he's looking pretty good to me.
Oh, you know what? It's crazy because it's all right, this is his first kind of real on-ice action in a while, right? It's with the big club. It's in this scrim. It's okay. Let's see what happens in his first game. Because, I'm so used to tempering my expectations, right? With so many prospects, okay, they looked good. They made the right play there. And it's just Demidov goes on the ice. It's now this dude's a star. He goes out there that's our prospect. This is how long has it been? I can't even remember a time I've watched a guy do this kind of stuff and just be oh, that's a Habs prospect doing this stuff. I know it's simple. I know it's just one snipe in a scrimmage, but it's the fact that this is kind of the first thing we're seeing in a while after coming off an injury, and he's just out there against his SKA teammates for the KHL, and it's just ripping absolute snipes off the rush. How much of a feeling of confidence does that give you, Jesse? Because I know when we look at prospects, we like to evaluate a lot of the intangibles, a lot of this kind of stuff, especially because, the Habs, especially the later pick stuff like that. And Reinbacher, well, he had some other situation, this kind of stuff. Hudson was always really good. It's always fun to watch his stuff. But for this to be the first game and see this from Demidov, I can't even explain this feeling. It's something I haven't felt in a long time for a Habs prospect.
Yeah, I'm feeling confident. He's looking confident out there as well, right? And it's this is really what is so huge for this team. Why Habs fans, why Xhekaj Nation to be so happy is we have such a solid foundation, but then you take this high level player and you put it on top of this solid framework that this team has of very good players, of the Owen Becks, of the Xhekajes, obviously this young core, the one, not to mention our first line, right? Good players as well, right? And then but somebody to kind of help take things over the top even more. We do have elite players in Montreal.
The X factor.
Well, right, but that's it. But really complementing it and just taking it to that whole another level. That's what's so amazing. When you see that's being well built, it's you got the foundation right, and we're just deciding to really cap it off in a great way. I don't think that Kent Hughes is done. So it's just amazing to see how overall this is being done, because if you have that much talent, but then also a solid foundation to really back it up, for me, when we're looking about being consistent year in, year out, that's how you really establish that.
I can't believe it. That the excitement is palpable, right? You guys can probably feel it. This energy is like you said, you have, not only will the product on ice, I think almost certainly be a lot better this year. We'll see a big jump from a lot of players, or at least development in some of the key areas. But then you still look and like whether Hudson plays in the NHL or not, like in the coming years he'll be a lot better. And you got it, like him and Demidov can both be offensive dynamos, offensive complete game changers. And Reinbacher in one of these worlds out there, he comes in and he's a defensive game changer. He's just one of those guys that controls the game. And it's like, there's so many good things happening for Montreal. It feels surreal to be a fan. And you guys are in on the ground floor with us. We only started this a little while ago. And this is going to grow into one of the best teams in the league. We're so confident. Maybe it's delusional. I don't think so. I think there's a reason that this team is going to do well. They've drafted the right way. They're coaching the right way. Things are only going to go up from here. But let us know your thoughts on all the future of the Montreal Canadiens down below. We'd love to hear from you. Excited to do it for this episode of Habs Die. Just leave a like on the video while you're here. We really appreciate the likes in every single video. You guys seem to love them. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.